Wonderful word, hello. Hello, hello, hello. What a wonderful word, hello. Hello, hello, hello. Hello, hello, hello. What a wonderful word, hello. All right. See what we got here. All right. Good morning, good morning, good morning, and welcome, welcome, welcome to Daring Dialogues. I am your host, Shantae Charles. And if you are on my Periscope, please let me know by pressing the hearts. For some reason, I can't see anyone popping up. Don't see anybody popping up. So I'm hoping that Periscope is not having an issue. And the only way I know that is if there are hearts on the screen. Good morning, Lady Barbara. Good morning, Lady Judy, I believe, is on our YouTube live stream. Let me try my Periscope again. All right. If you all will bear with me for a moment. I think something happened. Sometimes we have these technical snafus. And all we can do is fix it. She said she can't see Periscope. Right, I just got out of there because I don't think anybody could. So I am actually Periscope is doing something weird right now, so I'm trying to restart it. But thank you all for bearing with me. These are some of the things we have to deal with on the technical side. So sometimes we're not able to come right on at our designated time because technology sometimes won't let us be great. And I have a really good lesson for today, so I want to make sure that all is set up. All right, let's try this again on Periscope. I'm about to press the live button. Okay. All right. So, there we go. And I've already shared my YouTube broadcast. All right. Okay, so my Periscope is up. All right. I do see somebody popping in there. Let's see how we do today. All right. So one person is on there, and hopefully more will come on as we go. All right, so good morning, good morning, good morning. Welcome to Daring Dialogues. I am your host, Shantae Charles. I hope that everybody is having a great and wonderful day. I want to point out something very, very powerful about media really quickly. Just on yesterday, I said live, okay, that I could not see the comments on YouTube on replay like I can on Periscope. And do you know the notice that I just got today when I logged in to YouTube? All new, good news. You can now see the comments on replay from your YouTube viewers. That is how powerful making a request known live is. All right. And I'm sure I'm not the only person who has made note of that. But I know I made note of it yesterday live on my live stream. And today they have provided that. All right. So now I can be able to go back on the replay for my YouTube and I can see all of the wonderful comments and notes that my YouTube viewers have been saying and sharing, which is awesome. All right. So it is Finance Friday. I still don't see anybody popping into the Periscope, which is not normal, but I'm going to keep going. So hopefully people will be able to pop in and they will be able to catch the replay. I tried to clear my devices so that I would not have anything on my storage that might be causing some issues. All right. So a couple of things. Since we are doing Finance Fridays, I know that during this year we're going to be back in these two books. So I want to put them out there. One of the books we were reading from in season 1, we're probably going to come back to this book for this season. And that is Powernomics, the National Plan to Empower Black America. So Lady Barbara, is that from your side that you can't get on Periscope? Or is that you're having a technical difficulty? Because I do need to know the difference. All right. You're having technical difficulties, or you just can't get on Periscope. All right. So Powernomics is one of the books. Powernomics is one. And the one that we're going to take a look at reading before Powernomics is Black Labor, White Wealth by Dr. Claude Anderson. Today, we're going to start out, because we're going to, for this month, we're going to be talking about cash, capital, and credit. Cash, capital, and credit. Now, I did say that I was going to give you a Black history piece on this, because one of the things, because one of the things that is important for us to understand is that Black people in this country have a very distinct history around cash, capital, and credit. All right. And if historians would be honest, we are one of the only people groups, all right, who have literally been cash, capital, and credit for this country. So we have a unique history with the system of finance. All right, that's two people who say they can't get on Periscope. So let me stop the Periscope and let me go back over there and find out what is the problem. Thank you guys for bearing with me here. So, there we go. This is, let me delete. And let me restart it. All right. Okay. And I'll need somebody to pop back over there to see if they can get on, okay? All right. So, I just made it live. And let's see if you all can get on now. All right. So this is my third time trying to pop it up on Periscope, and it appears to be running. I'm not sure why you all aren't able to get on. So if you're not able to get on, just hop back on my YouTube live stream today. Haven't had this problem with Periscope in a while, which is interesting. Okay. All right, so we're only on YouTube today then, but I'll keep the Periscope stream going. This is the history of the black dollar, the history of the black dollar. And this book is by Angel Rich. I actually tried to look for it online. The hardcover, okay, it's still not working. Okay. The hardcover is not available anymore. I think they're out of print. But I'm trying to get a hold of a copy of the hardcover of this for myself. I actually got this one from the library. But she does have this book on Kindle for $9.99, which is a very reasonable price, considering the information in here is invaluable. And this is the history of the black dollar. So this is where we're going to start today, because as I said, it's very interesting that we as a people are the only ones in this nation who have a direct relationship with not only dealing in cash and credit and capital, but our ancestors were the cash, the credit, and the capital. So we have a unique relationship with this monetary system that other people do not. All right. And it's important to understand that because there are some people today who still have a mindset that black people really should just be consumers as opposed to accumulating wealth. All right. There's a mindset of still making money off of black people while at the same time denying them access to credit and capital. All right. So that needs to be understood. Let's take a look at the opening of this book here. It says, Advancing a 21st Century Wealth Equity Agenda by Dr. Maya Rockeymoore, CEO, Center for Global Policy Solutions. And, okay. Global Policy Solutions. African Americans have always worked hard for their dollars, but their dollars have not always worked for them. From the earliest time on U.S. soil, there are examples of blacks combining their ingenuity and labor to create innovative and lucrative businesses, managing to achieve financial success and social and political influence even during the darkest chapters in the nation's history. Nevertheless, the story for the vast majority of African Americans has been one of economic marginalization and financial struggle. Released from slavery with nothing but the clothes on their backs and whatever skills they managed to accumulate on plantations, African Americans made the remarkable transition from being human capital to learning how to generate capitals to support their families in a racialized system where they were too often met with maximum opposition to their success. Despite surviving the indignities and horrors of the Jim Crow era and finally achieving voting rights, equal access to public accommodations, and broader educational opportunities during the Civil Rights era, many of the same systemic barriers that have historically plagued African Americans continue to be a factor today. This circumstance is measured through what we refer to as the racial wealth gap, the economic divide that leaves blacks with a fraction of the wealth of whites. Contrary to assumptions about African American spending patterns, researchers have shown that most of this gap can be explained by discriminatory policies, different educational and home ownership experiences, and labor market practices that too often leave blacks with the short end of the economic stick. Depending on the data source, whites are estimated to have about 10 to 17 times the median wealth of blacks. And I just received some kind of message from my Periscope. So let me try to clock out of here, and I'm actually going to go live on my personal page. And then that will solve the problem for people who are looking for me. How about that? Thank you all so much for your patience today. I don't know why mass media is giving me all these problems, but my personal page is going to get a lesson today on finance. So how about that? Okay, there we go. All right, so hopefully those who are trying to find me through Periscope will be able to find me directly on my page. When looked at on a dollar basis, and good morning to those of you who are coming in on the YouTube live stream and the Facebook live stream. This is Daring Dialogues, and we are having our Finance Friday, which we normally cover on Periscope, but Periscope is giving me some problems this morning, so we are bringing it to you live through Facebook. I don't know if Facebook is going to allow this kind of information to go forth, but at least you will have it live right now. So, when looked at on a dollar basis, the typical African American family only owns 6 cents for every dollar of wealth owned by the typical white family. All right. So for every dollar, all right, for every dollar that a white family has, a black family only has 6 cents. Okay. Given the history of blacks in America, very few families are positioned to leave inheritances to their children. Most African American families might have burial insurance, which is enough insurance just to cover them being buried and put in the ground and not necessarily leaving an inheritance. This means that income diverted into savings, investments, businesses, and other appreciating assets should be the primary vehicle through which African Americans build wealth. Yet there's also a racial income gap with blacks and Latinos, earning only 67 cents for every dollar of earnings made by whites. Given these disparities, it is not a surprise that the racial wealth gap exists at every income quintile. However, many people do not know that the racial wealth gap is the largest at the lowest income quintile. Periscope, for some reason, is not allowing people to get on, so I had to do Facebook Live, and I'm also on my YouTube live stream. So good morning to those of y'all who normally watch me on Periscope. I'm trying to make sure I get the information out. All right? Please feel free to share this broadcast and enjoy. All right? So those of you who are on my personal page, this is what I do in the morning at 11 a.m. every morning, Monday through Friday. All right? So we're talking about this racial wealth gap, and then we're going to get into the books, The Capitalist Code and Your Score. We're talking about cash, credit, all right, and capital. Cash, credit, and capital, and we're talking about it all through the month of March, every Friday. One of the things I said to my YouTube live stream earlier is that Black Americans have a unique story because we are one of the only people groups in this country, specifically the United States, that were indeed the cash. Our ancestors were indeed the cash, the capital, and the credit. All right? So we're not only using the system, but our ancestors were the system. Something that should not be overlooked. Okay? As to why is there such a big wealth gap? So, we know that from one recent study, it was found that the average black family would need 228 years to build the wealth of a white family in 2016. So where do we go from here? There is no doubt that African Americans should, to the extent possible, resist America's consumer culture that encourages constant spending on frivolous items of little or depreciating value. That doesn't mean that you can't enjoy life. What it means is you are behind in your wealth building, 228 years behind. So you have to consider that and factor that in when you are trying to build economic wealth. All right. Whereas other people groups, right, other ethnicities may have a little bit more leeway in how they spend their money. You really have to buckle down and think about how are you going to invest? How are you going to save your capital? How are you going to reinvest your capital back into your community? African Americans should also take pains to avoid businesses and banks, such as payday lenders and banks offering exploitive loans that have bad terms, that use wealth-stripping business models to pad their bottom lines. The biggest task ahead is launching and achieving a wealth equity policy and political agenda that pushes for systemic investments in K-12 financial literacy and capability. All right. And there are some programs out here now that are teaching young people how to build their wealth and not wait until they're 18 years old. K-12 exposure to the principles and practice of entrepreneurship. Post-secondary business accelerators targeting entrepreneurs of color and entrepreneurs of any race from low-income households, guaranteed access to business capital and supports, better opportunities for building match savings over a lifetime, and a lot of people are building their wealth through their families now. A lot of families are realizing, okay, if the banks don't want to give you loans, we want to look around in our own family. All right, this goes into family planning. We want to look around in our own family and say, who are the businessmen? Who are the people in our family that we can invest in, that we can pull together our own capital and invest in someone from our own family, right? And send them forth for a business idea, a business venture, so that that money goes back into the family that invested in that person. So people they are coming up with ways as to how to get around these denials that are happening when we're talking about loans and capital. Again, we also need to get our minds right. If used properly, the black dollar can not only provide our families with generational wealth, it can also accelerate the liberation of our communities, right? Because we know that we can generate capital. Black Panther has shown that. All right. Black Panther, I think they said it's set this weekend to make over $1 billion by the time it finishes up this next weekend. All right. It took $200 million to make the film. So that's an $800 million profit they're looking at. And that's just only in the first couple of weeks. But as someone pointed out, most of that profit is going to Disney. It's not going back into the black community. So while we are excited about the movie, while we know that yes, that movie employed lots of African American people to get that movie done, we still have to look at where are the profits going, where's the residual income going. And we know, as people have now figured out, all right, that black people can sell something globally. That was a big question that was hanging over people's heads. Can a black movie or can a predominantly black cast do well on a global scale? That has been proven. So, yeah, people will benefit from that as well. But the bottom line is we're talking about making sure that as we get the capital, as we build our credit, as we improve our credit for some of us, and as we have cash, that we make sure it's benefiting our communities. All right? So the book that I was just reading from is called History of the Black Dollar by Angel Rich. It is actually unavailable in hardback anymore. It is on Kindle. I believe the price on it is $9.99, and she goes into the history of the black dollar from the time that we were actually the commodity and the capital all the way up to present day. And it's a series of essays that I'm probably going to come back to next week. But it's a series of essays. Let me give you some of the people in here. The Great Migration, Booker T. Washington. She does a piece here on convict leasing, which was another way to basically use blacks as free labor or cheap labor. Convict leasing. She talks about Black Wall Street in here. She talks about Kingman Park, banking black billionaires, reparations, the Great Recession of 2008, the Black Financial Experience, Black Lives Matter, 2012, and then closing the racial wealth gap. So we will be back looking at this book on next Friday as well. So let me get into our two main books for today. We have Ben Stein, The Capitalist Code, and Your Score, an insider's secret to understanding, controlling, and protecting your credit score. So we're going to start with The Capitalist Code first. The Capitalist Code by Ben Stein. Ben Stein is an economist, although most people know him as an actor. If you ever seen Ferris Bueller's Day Off, he's the teacher that Ferris Bueller keeps escaping. All right. But his profession is actually economy. So today we're talking about the free will of the individual. The free will of the individual. What is capitalism? There are many definitions, but the one that applies to us in the 21st century America is this. Capitalism is a system in which economic decisions are made by individuals voluntarily on the basis of whether they think the decisions will help or harm them financially. It's a scheme whereby the key factor in the production and distribution of goods and services is the deployment of money or capital from private sources to private users of the funds, with those decisions made by private entities. In capitalism, decisions are not enforced based on the whim of the government, but by the free will of the individual, as such or as part of a group, often a much larger group. In this system of free market democratic capitalism, the means of production, distribution, and communication are usually, but not always, owned through possession of shares in stock in publicly owned corporations. These are entities that gather investment funds and do all the hard work of running the investments, but then have limited liability if things go bad. The liability of the owner is limited to how much money he or she put in. There's generally no liability beyond that for borrowings or any other obligations of the corporation. In Europe, these vehicles are also often called LLCs, limited liability corporations. This part of free market capitalism, limiting the liability and the downside of the investors and yet having no upside limits, is a magnificent lure for investors. In fact, it was not until the 18th century, when the limited liability feature came into being, that corporate investing skyrocketed. Stocks and the ownership class. Stocks that evidence property in a corporation can be owned in small amounts by any individual. Anyone can buy a few $100s worth of ownership, for example, in Ford Motor Company, or stocks can be owned in extremely large amounts by fantastically wealthy individuals such as Bill Gates of Microsoft and Warren Buffett of Berkshire Hathaway, of whom there will be much more to come. But more often, ownership of the public shares of a corporation that owns important chunks of production and distribution is in the hands of aggregations of people. These would be the beneficiaries of the pension funds of large corporations and of unions of factory workers or teachers, or even Hollywood screenwriters. Or they can be investors in vehicles such as mutual funds, index funds, or exchange-traded funds, in which great volumes of stock are put together under some guiding principle of investment and then sold to investors of all sizes. The main point is that private individuals and entities own the means of production and distribution, and anyone can be part of this ownership class. The government is not the owner. Now, how do you get involved in being a part of the stocks in the ownership class? Most people do that through a company that they work for, right? You're maybe offered to invest in stocks. Some companies, depending on where you work, will give you a stock option, right? They will give you a portion of shares within their company. So it really depends on who and where you work for. Thank you, because I was just about to mention your name. On my Facebook Live, Temi Shiambade is on here. She is an excellent business attorney. She does Facebook Lives all the time on the business side. She's a wonderful business attorney, I believe out of Texas. And she does wonderful, wonderful information on the difference between types of businesses that you should get involved in. So I would definitely tell you, please follow her and check out her broadcast. All right. She goes into detail about the types of businesses that are out there and what is right for you. So the rewards of good economic decisions. In this system, enormous rewards flow to persons who have made good economic decisions. If they have made good economic decisions over long periods of time, the rewards can be startlingly large. When people talk about investing, no problem. When people talk about investing, you really have to think in the long term, right? There are some investments that are very, very high risk, and then there's some investments that are low risk. But to me, what all investing has in common is the fact that you have to be patient. All right. You can't get into investing thinking that you're going to get a windfall per se overnight. All right. Investments do take time to grow. So I do want to make sure that I say that. Wrong decisions are not punished by terms in prison camps or by firing squads as in government-run dictatorial states. Instead, they are punished by a lack of economic advancement or by being fired. That's much better than being fired upon. In free market capitalism, the major means of production, factories, formulas, farmland, coal mines, oil fields, stores, airplanes, railroads, are owned by private individuals, not by the government. So are the smaller means of production and distribution, such as car dealerships, florists, restaurants, clothing stores, and boutique manufacturers. To be sure, the government still owns immense resources, especially in terms of land and the minerals that lie under the land, in terms of our bridges, our tunnels, our airports, and licenses. But I know there is some concern recently because people want to consider privatizing some of these things, and that could be a serious problem. The government also has power to regulate the private sector and even sometimes to confiscate it. But this power is subject to counterattack in the courts and even in regulatory agencies, as we see now that is happening with the FCC, right? And the rules that have just been changed that are now automatically affecting smaller business people, all right? I don't know about you, but if you're a small business owner, you probably are starting to feel the effects of the regulations from the FCC. If you don't know what just happened, all right, please go and look up changes to the regulations for FCC that they just voted in. All right, automatically companies like YouTube started changing their requirements for the platform to be on there. All right, and I know that that was a direct result of what they just did with the regulations. So to give you an example, almost every weeknight I watch my dear pal Jimmy Kimmel on ABC. He's a private person. His production company is private. The networks that distribute his show are private. There is no Department of TV comedy on Constitution Ave in the District of Columbia. It's all done privately and works well. Although in recent years, some government officials have been funnier than anything even Kimmel could have dreamed up. You and I can easily become owners of the Walt Disney Company, which owns ABC. In that way, in a very small manner, we own a huge factory that manufactures laughter and relaxation. We can also own ownership stock in the companies that send out Jimmy Kimmel on cable. For you, readers, most of whom I assume to be young, the key point is that there are more or less free access to any person in America who has saved a few dollars to become an investor in these private resources. If these purchase decisions are made sensibly, and if they are made consistently, the investor can and will become a well-heeled man or woman. In fact, this investor is guaranteed to get wealthy. This means, of course, a greatly enhanced standard of life and opportunities to travel, to have better education for your children, to have better medical care, and better and safer vehicles. Being part of a capitalist society makes a family more independent as well. That family need not fear that if a mean-spirited boss fires the breadwinner, the whole family will go down in flames. Owning part of the means of production, however small that ownership share begins, erects a fortress around the family. They can pay their bills and keep their lives comfortable even when others like them who have been fired but who are lacking in property are in terror. Property, especially the property that is part of the machinery of what produces the national product of America, is safety. If you do it right, it produces income whether you are at work or not. With capital and the income from it, you can maintain your health, your morale, and yourself in ways that persons without property cannot. In sum, capitalism can be a thing of beauty. It's not the same as long ago when only heredity or physical strength determined who would have capital. In the past, all right, you had to inherit land or factories in order to have capital. Women were largely excluded from owning capital. Accidents of birth decided everything. This is still true in many parts of the world. That is changed and is changing thanks to free market, democratic capitalism. Now we know there's other kinds of capitalism. There's crony capitalism, which unfortunately is happening at some of our highest levels of government. But he's talking about democratic capitalism, that anybody can get into investment, and they should if they have the funds to do so. All it takes is a bit of knowledge and an even smaller amount of action. In today's world, to coin a phrase, any man or woman can be a king or a queen. One of the ways that I have seen investments work for me personally is I was able to fund my own publishing projects because I had some capital. All right. I began investing, and by the time that I was ready to produce my works, I went to the major publishing houses. I submitted my ideas. I got some feedback back. Some of that feedback was, number one, we want you to take out women preachers in your books. All right. And I was like, that's not going to fly. All right. You have to understand what your market is asking for, right? So in my market, most of the major publishing companies, Christian-wise, if you don't understand that they're owned by certain denominations, all right, and those denominations have certain belief systems that they want to see in fiction, all right? So if your book that you're trying to promote or you're trying to push to a certain publishing company does not like what your book is talking about, even if it is a Christian inspirational fiction book, then you have to figure out, okay, if this company does not want my material, what do I do from there? So what did I do? I formed my own publishing company, an LLC, all right? And in my own publishing company, I was able to then release my own works, keep the rights, 100% rights to my work. I copyrighted my books. Okay, I did everything I was supposed to do by the book. So I own the rights to my book. I own the publishing rights to my book. All right, I own the authorship rights to my books. So guess what? I do use a distributor, but after I pay my distributor, then I get to keep the profits that I reinvest into my company. All right. But I was only able to do that after I saved up enough capital using some investment streams, right? Using some ways of investing. And I had that capital reserved for several years so that when they said, no, we don't want to publish your books, I wasn't just stuck trying to figure out how I was going to get my work out there. I had enough saved up so that I could invest in my own work, the monies that it took to get it published, the monies it took to establish the business, the monies that it took to hire some people to help me with the editing, the money that it took to publish the book, the money that it took to design the covers. All right. There's a lot of finance that goes into book publishing, whether people realize it or not. And I will say with an asterisk, if you want it done correctly. All right. Because I know people are just putting stuff out and I'm looking at it and I'm saying this is not industry standard. And this is why they cannot get it into a major bookstore. That's one of the reasons why. All right. So my books have been in major bookstores. They have been in Barnes and Nobles. They have been in Borders when Borders was around. They have been in Books A Million because I follow industry standards in my publications. All right. And I help other people do that as well. So capital. You can start small. Okay. You can start small until you get up enough capital to go into your bank to say, I want to see what investment vehicles you have. So even if you're saying, well, the only thing I can manage to save every week is $5 a week. All right. Some people, that's all they can manage to save. Make sure you're actually saving those $5 a week or those $10 a week. And as you accumulate that, then you have enough to go and actually open some accounts. All right. So I just wanted to say that to begin with. Let me move on. I do this for those of you who are watching on Facebook Live. I am on Periscope normally. I'm only on Facebook Live today because my Periscope is not working for some reason. But I am on Periscope at pscp.tv/LifeNation every morning at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. And we cover different subjects Monday through Friday. Monday we cover motivation. Tuesday we cover history, mainly Black history. Wednesday we cover relationships, single, dating, courting, etc. We're on the history of dating right now. Thursdays we cover theology. We talk about religion. We talk about the occult. We talk about the history of Christianity, which we're digging into right now. And then Fridays we cover finance and health. But for the month of March, we're talking cash, credit, and capitalism. All right. So I do not like Facebook Live because sometimes your videos just disappear. So that's why I'm on Periscope normally. All right. The next book I want to show you, for those of you who want a screenshot, all right, to check this book out, is called Your Score. And it is by Anthony Davenport. It's an insider's secret to understanding, controlling, and protecting your credit score. And we are on the introduction. Anthony says, I used to be on the other side. After I got out of college, I worked my way up through Bank of America's mortgage lending department to eventually be one of the top loan originators in the country. From there, I went to Wells Fargo and reached that firm's highest performance tier in home mortgage origination. At both banks, I learned exactly how the consumer credit industry works and how the lenders and the credit bureaus themselves are working together to extract as much cash from you as possible. Now, if you've ever done your credit reports, you probably already know that this is true. That it seems as if your lender and the credit bureaus are working together to extract as much money from you as possible. All right. I know exactly how banks and other lenders evaluate borrowers, and I know what kinds of decisions, both good and bad, have the biggest impact on your credit scores. I built my mortgage business with the intent that I would work on the borrower's side to give them the best deal possible. I might not make as much money on each loan, but I'd have an army of happy customers who would come back again and again and also tell their friends. This approach worked, but as time went on, mortgage lenders across the country gradually got wise to this and made internal rules prohibiting their loan originators from offering borrowers key information that might help save them money. Isn't that a mess? That left a bad taste in my mouth, and so, since 2010, I've been working full-time on the consumer side, arming them with better and more accurate information so they can engage lenders and credit bureaus in a fair fight. In less than 10 years, Regal Credit Management has become the largest consumer credit management firm in New York City and has helped thousands of high-profile clients navigate the consumer credit landscape. I'm not just a guy who used to work at a bank. I've been there personally, and I know what it feels like to be almost overcome by stress and fear and even panic that can come with dealing from creditors and credit bureaus. Now, let me point out, as I said last week, who owns the credit bureau agencies? Anybody know? All right. Some homework for you. Google who owns the credit bureau agencies. And I think we were reading just last night that there was another report that came out about the breaches that recently happened in these credit bureaus. And they keep sending out reports saying it's worse than we thought. And then another report comes and says it's worse than we thought. And this third one just came out last night that said it's even worse than we thought. All right. So again, yes, we have credit bureaus, we have credit agencies, but understand things like breaches can affect you. Last week, for 72 hours, my bank was down. The online services were down. If you bank with BB&T, you know what I'm talking about. The online services were down for 72 hours. All we got was after the fact, because I had to go over there and I had to make some phone calls. But after the fact, we got an email saying that We're sorry for the inconvenience. For those who are doing online banking, that you were actually not able to transfer money into your account, and you weren't able to pull money out of your account. In some cities, the ATMs were not working. So think about, and they were like, well, we will refund you any bank fees that you incur. I'm like, no, not just bank fees that people are going to incur, but if people are paying online bills and they can't pay their online bills on time, how is that going to affect their credit? And this was something that was not the fault of the consumer. Those things actually do matter in terms of building your credit. So what are you going to do to compensate those people whose bills that you made late because of your online banking issues? All right. So it's not just, oh, we will refund you any bank fees, but how are you going to fix how their credit was affected overall? I haven't gotten an answer back yet. I'm looking for one. All right. So he says, in 2007, at the beginning of the financial crisis, the mortgage origination business basically vanished almost overnight. Banks suddenly stopped lending, and the government imposed far more strict documentation standards for every loan. The loan pipeline went empty, and my livelihood disappeared. In the space of 6 months, I went from a guy cruising along, making his own house and car payments, and socking away money in the bank, to one trying desperately to keep his head above water. Eventually, I declared personal bankruptcy, lost my house to foreclosure, and had to start over again. As I was picking up the pieces, I realized how much information I had about how credit decisions are made, and how little the average person knows about this subject. It's something that affects virtually every part of our lives. But most people treat their credit scores as some sort of unknowable mystery, mostly because that's how creditors and the credit bureaus want it to be perceived. It probably would have been easy for the game to continue along if the financial meltdown and the Great Recession had not hit late in 2007. When the mortgage business tightened and the economy went into tailspin, lots and lots of people got hurt. Their homes were foreclosed upon. They lost jobs. They took big financial hits. All of a sudden, millions of people were now forced to confront their credit situation. A lot of them discovered just how much they didn't know about the process that creditors use to evaluate them. Even though the worst of the economic slowdown has passed, a lot of the same warning signals continue to flash today. There still isn't any real transparency from the credit bureaus. People still don't know how that business works and what the real ramifications of their good and bad decisions are. And folks in literally every income category are getting beat up by the credit market. The proof walks through my door every day. Push one of the presets on your car radio, go to your favorite popular music station. If you listen for 20 minutes, you'll probably hear a song by one artist whose name you recognize immediately. If you went to one of those celebrity network sites and plug this artist's name in, you get a number of the worth of that person being 50 million. You would think that a person with that kind of fame and money wouldn't have any credit issues, right? But that singer is actually one of my clients and had a problem that took several people 6 months to solve. Identity theft, along with mismanagement by credit bureaus, created such a mess that the artist was in danger of being declined for a simple mortgage, even with millions of dollars of cash in the bank. Another one of the clients is a world-famous hip-hop artist who had problems of his own. An inattentive former business manager had ignored a pile of bills and a serious case of identity theft. The performer had also never built up a business credit profile, even though he had a staff of 20 and had earned tens of millions of dollars in royalties and from being on tour. His credit was so bad he had to personally guarantee a loan for his own tour. Unraveling those issues involved seeking a new Social Security number, as well as the meticulous rebuilding of his credit profile over a 2-year span. If you all have been paying attention in the news, I know recently an article came out about Mary J. Blige, right? That she is $25 million in debt, and the fact that she didn't make any coins, as they say, on Mudbound, even though it's about to, well, she's nominated, I think, for an award, right? And so people are looking at that and saying, well, how is it that, you know, Mary J. Blige is pretty much in the public eye? She's well known, right? She's been doing work. She's been doing projects, but these are her circumstances that she's in. And so one of the things that he's talking about here is just because a person has cash, it doesn't necessarily mean that they have a good credit reputation. All right? The average person might not be trying to figure out a world concert tour or qualify for an American Express Centurion card, but his everyday credit challenges are often strikingly similar. In your score, I'm going to show you the step-by-step path to understanding your real credit score, how to build ideal credit profile, and how to protect yourself from predatory lenders, careless mistakes, and even plain bad decisions. All right? So, knowledge is power, he says, but it's also protection. The most common threat most of us face in the information age isn't a physical crime, it is identity theft. Anyone who doesn't think it could happen to them isn't living in the real world. I do a series of financial literacy clinics in schools in New York City. In every one of them, a kid with internet access is able to track down enough personal details on a celebrity within 20 minutes to be able to open an account in their name. I'm going to give you the same level strategies I share to prevent identity theft in the first place and to cut it off if it does happen. All right. So we're going to get into his first chapter on next Friday, and that is what you don't know can hurt you. What you don't know can hurt you. One thing that I found out just from experience in our own personal life is that there are several credit scores. It's not just one composite score. And I'm not talking about the 3 that come from Equifax, TransUnion, and can't think of the third one off the top of my head. Somebody knows it. You can put it up on the screen. But outside of those scores, right, lending institutions have a score that doesn't necessarily match the credit bureaus. And then when you go for things like a home, or you go for things like, say you want to get a car, Experian, thank you, Equifax, TransUnion, and Experian. Say you want to go to get a car loan, okay? Your credit bureau scores may say a score on there. But what we learned was car places have their own score based on your history with automobiles, period. They don't tell you that. Well, this particular person told us. And so you're thinking you may have a good overall score, but when they go to do a car loan, they're looking at what is your credit history with automobiles. All right? When people go and look at your credit score for a mortgage, they want to know what is your credit history with a home. Is a credit company that many mortgage companies use. Not understanding the comment, Apostle, if you could rephrase it for me. So you have to look at that. You may be thinking I have a great credit score overall, but then you have to go into your credit history and you have to say, but what is my credit history around whatever I'm trying to get a loan for? What is my credit history with homes and apartments? Do I have any, have I ever been evicted? Those are the kind of things that you might need to look at more specifically if you're trying to get a mortgage. Oh, LexisNexis is the company that you are not aware of that many mortgage companies use. Awesome. Thank you. All right. So again, that's why we're going to dig into your score. All right. We're going to learn about some of the things that you might not know about the credit industry and how they are judging you and how they're evaluating you so that you can make the necessary adjustments. Also, if you are someone who operates now in the booming business of credit repair, all right, and you're one of my friends and I know you, please leave your information in the comment section for my Facebook Live viewers of how they can get a hold of you so that if they are interested in credit repair, they can start repairing their credit. All right. So this has been another Daring Dialogues. I want to thank you for your time and attention. And I want to thank my Facebook Live viewers for tuning in and joining me today. I apologize to my Periscope viewers. They're probably wondering where I went, but there was nothing I could do about it today. I don't know what's going on with my Periscope. But if you want to catch the replay, I will leave this up on my Facebook Live, or you can go to my YouTube channel and subscribe at Church Love 333. I know we had lots of technical difficulties today, so I didn't get into everything I wanted to read, but I appreciate those of you who were able to attend this broadcast today. So I want you to have a great and wonderful weekend. We will be live on our YouTube live stream and our Periscope on Sunday at 2:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for our Sunday message. All right. Remember, light is the most daring opposition to darkness. So please go out today and be light. All right. Thank you again for your time and attention. Take care and God bless. And thank you all for tuning in over here on my YouTube live stream. Sorry for all of the technical difficulties. You all have a great and wonderful day. Take care and God bless.